Okay, so I'm going to talk broadly around how brands can use their platforms to support musicians and why they should in the first place. So music's a universal language, and we understand that if a brand accesses music in the right way, they get access to a global audience. But on the other hand, musicians are also considered to be some of the most important cultural trendsetters in the world. And by working with the right musicians, you get an ambassador that is going to be representative of your brand, that's going to be able to share your message in a way that's authentic. But to reach that, it takes a very special team, I think, and it takes a bit of magic that can only happen in the right circumstances. And the first step is, how do you identify and find these artists that you should be working with? And I think there's a real balance here between experts on a ground level and then using new technology and data. And a great example is something like Adidas and Stormzy. So that's been a hugely successful campaign over the past year. And the way Adidas were able to execute that was by having a grassroots team that was tapped into culture, that knew Stormzy was going to be big before he was a global star. And Adidas trusted him enough to support his vision. It wasn't about a cash exchange, but it was about collaborating and finding unique ways to work together. And they were only able to do that because they had experts on a ground level that knew Stormzy was going to be big. So that's the first piece. But to really amplify it, we think you need to also take a data or technology approach. And there are a ton of new platforms, for example, Next Big Sound, which allow you to track the growth and progress of an artist. It's these platforms which really help you identify whether an artist's audience is going to have synergy with your audience, whether they share the kind of content that you're going to be interested in creating, whether they're interested and follow the same topics that your brand is passionate about. And I think it's this combination of both, of experts on a ground level and data, when combined, will give you an opportunity to find an artist that is really going to embody your brand message. So once you've found the artist, you then need to think about how we're going to work together. How can your brand support this artist? And I think too many brands send a brief to an artist saying, we need you to perform here, or we want you to be part of this music video or this campaign. And that can work sometimes, but the best way is really to learn about the artist's vision. Learn about what their aims and plans are for the next year, or the longer term even, and think about how you can support that. And there are a few examples that we can give. On the one hand, a brand can fund the visuals. So for example, with Adidas and Stormzy, Adidas paid for a number of music videos for Stormzy to create, where he might not have had the budget to do that himself. On the other hand, there's a more extreme where an artist or group of artists like the Gorillaz, for example, are very passionate about climate change. And they did a collaboration recently with Eon, which was all about sharing that message. And I think there's a broad spectrum here on how a brand and artist collaboration can be authentic and effective. And first, it's about learning about the artist's vision, learning about their message and what they're really passionate about. And then finding ways to support them, whether that's funding their ideas or creating a collaborative project. But there's another step beyond this, which I think is also really important, and it's about brands bringing something new to the table. I think too many brands emulate what has been done in the past. They might see a campaign that worked quite well or a partnership model that was effective, and they'll reuse the same thing. But we're in a time now where there's so much scope to experiment. And a great example, I think, of a brand that's led the way in terms of bringing something new is Red Bull, as we all know. And what they do is they create new art, because people aren't interested in a campaign. Music fans are interested in music. And so if a brand is delivering new music, that is going to really excite your fan base and build a passionate audience. So Red Bull used their Red Bull Studios to bring unique collaborations together. Artists who would have never worked together get a chance to collaborate. And I think that's a great model of how a brand can really support the music industry and support talent, is by bringing people together, colliding these two worlds. So there's some key takeaways here which I think are really important. And the first step is if your brand is interested in supporting music or being part of the music conversation, you need to define your aims. You need to have a long-term vision about what it is you want to achieve in music. Whether that's you want to gain access to a new audience or you want to break 50 new artists. We look at something like Smirnoff Sound Collective, which has set a mission to lead to twice as many women headliners by 2020. That's a very clear aim. So define your aims. Then build a mix of expertise from your ground level grassroots headhunters, in a sense, who are going to find the talent for you, and the technology you're going to use to validate whether that artist is the right artist to be working with, whether there's synergy between their audience and your audience. You then want to start thinking about how you can support their aims using your platform. Is it the artist is looking to develop a new visual show, or they have an idea about how they think they can change the world with music, or they just need some support to reach a new audience? You need to think about how your brand and your platform can help facilitate the artist's vision. And I think FK Twigs and Nike is a great example of something where the brand hands over creative control. And by doing so, there's the element of authenticity is very clear. You know, people know straight away that that is a project that has been done for the right reasons. Even though they're shifting product and you see a ton of product in that video, it's done in a way which is acceptable. It looks creative, and you know that the teams behind it were happy to be part of that because it's obviously pushing boundaries. So support the artist's aim, support their vision, hand over creative control at the right moments, and show that you trust the artist. Finally, bring something new to the fucking table. How many brands do you see just emulating the same ideas? That is what is going to stop innovation in our industry, and that's what's going to stop artists from growing, because if it worked for one brand and one artist doesn't mean it's going to work for another. And I think we really need to challenge brands to start pushing boundaries a bit more, to start working with artists and doing something completely new, to look at some of the important issues in the world and work with the artists to solve them, or to just create new art, to create new music that is going to stand the test of time. Your 60-second ad, no one gives a fuck about. And we know that. No one cares. The only people who care are the ones who live in a bubble, the advertising bubble, which I'm part of clearly. We're the only ones who really care about that. But no one's going to listen to that on Spotify. They're not going to want to stop to watch your advert on the side of the road. But if you can fund and invest in art that really matters, that can stand the test of time, that is how you're going to push boundaries and bring something new to the table. And I think that is how your brand can support musicians, is challenging the musician to do something new, challenging them to break out of their mold and try something different. So I'm going to stop ranting because I've got other shit to do, but brand supporting music, what do you think? How can we do it? Which brands are doing it right? And what is the future model for a brand and artist collaboration? Can brands break through new artists more than they thought they could? We've seen things like Shazam, which allow you to essentially, find out what song it is on an advert. We need to be using those models to break through more artists. Artists that don't have a deal. Artists that have 50 fans on Facebook, but we know their song is going to be great. Use your platform, use your mediums to support them and break through new talent.